Welcome to the Final Frontiers radio show, where we spotlight inspiring missionary endeavors around the globe. Stay tuned to hear how you can personally get involved, helping the Lord's frontline soldiers effectively advance the gospel where it has never been preached before. Today, we have an exciting discussion about uncontacted jungle tribes. We're also going to interview a recent participant of the visionary trips in Honduras. And we have an interview with a military man who is now a representative for Final Frontiers. Hello, this is Joshua Martin, and today I have missionary Jason Dover with me. We're going to talk about a subject that maybe you have not thought about or maybe you've never heard about before concerning uncontacted people all around the world. And this is something that we go into churches, we talk to people, and sometimes pastors don't even know anything about it. They've never heard the fact that there's still people out in jungles around the world that are completely untouched. They've never come out even into villages near them. They've just stayed out there. They've hid. And there's 140 plus tribes around the world right now in 12 different countries. These are jungle regions where they're not trying to reach them. They're scared of them often because these people have bows and arrows. They'll come in, they'll steal crops. It's dangerous. South America is actually where most of them are. There's 6 countries in South America where the majority of these tribes are. So Jason, how many years have we been involved in this?
Well, our very first expedition we took back in 2009, so that's been about almost 9 years now.
I remember the very first tribe going after them, and they gave us the idea that, well, you're never going to find these people, you're never going to find them, so you should go after somebody else.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's so many different obstacles to reach these people, and we've always had people telling us that there are other things that we could do with our time. There's other groups that we could go after that would be easier to reach. But really, that's the main reason why we go after these people, because nobody else will, because it is difficult.
There was about 14 in Peru, about 14 different tribes that had still been completely uncontacted. In the past many years, we have gone after about 3 of those, and we've tried to inspire the indigenous people that are there to do it themselves, to go after them, and sometimes that's difficult. Like the very first trip that we took. When we did go after them, we went as far as we could up the rivers, and we get there, and they were not interested in finding them at that time. They were somewhat scared. They would even set watches during the night sometimes. They were afraid that the people would come in, steal their crops, or steal their women. It was something that you don't hear about unless you go there.
Right.
And you're actually all the way up a river, several days out there into the jungle.
And that's been an unexpected benefit from these expeditions. When we first went out there, we were focused on the uncontacted, the unreached people and trying to get to those areas. But what the Lord has done along the way is allow us to meet indigenous Christians that live in the same area, often speak even the same language or same dialect as the uncontacted, and God has allowed us to inspire them to go out and make contact in areas that we've not been able to get to.
It's beautiful to meet those people, and sometimes all they need is just a little bit of encouragement to say, reach your own people. And if they are not going to reach their own people, what we do is we will say, look, we will risk our lives to go after your people.
Yes.
We will do it. Will you help us? Will you come?
That has been powerful. We've seen that where they have a mindset of, well, you just don't do that. It's not done. You don't go after them. But when they see these 2 white foreigners willing to risk their lives for their relatives, it's had a huge impact on them. And then they have gone out and attempted to make contact and succeeded in making contact.
Yeah, we're starting to see that happen. And sometimes it does take you risking your life. We've been on some very deep jungle trips. One in particular where we did nearly die. It was a miracle that we did not die. We had to be rescued by float plane. And that was actually the time when there were some of them that got up in a village meeting and they said, we think they're dead. Those 2 white guys, they're dead.
Yes.
And so we're going to get up and we're going to do what they did.
Yeah, God used even just the rumor of our death to inspire these to stand up and say, we will go and do what Josh and Jason died doing. And they were successful in making contact and were able to speak the same language with these people. And we're starting to see that in other areas, even in other countries as well.
It took 6 years of trying just after one of those tribes.
Yes.
It's hard. And when you're going out there and you do not have help, it's hard to get into these territories. Very, very difficult. We could speak to that for hours, telling you difficulties and things that we have been through. But it's beautiful to finally see the people surrender and say, we're going to go after them. The group that we had gone after, they're nomadic, but there's several groups of that same tribe. And the ones that we had been seeking were actually very dangerous. They carry huge arrows. They say they can stand on the bank and shoot those arrows. They'll go straight through the canoe and come out on the other side. I mean, they're very powerful. And so that's why people were so afraid. But when they went in after them, after they thought we were dead, they went in and they made peaceful contact with a group, and they were able to understand each other. And the dream is to be able to see them go after the other wild ones that are very, very dangerous right now, and see the whole group contacted. I remember the first time going after that tribe. I can remember reading scriptures from Isaiah 49 was what broke my heart. I can remember crying there and showing those scriptures to you, and we were praying together, and God spoke to both of our hearts to go after them. It was how Israel was crying out. They felt like, God, you've forsaken me. I felt like you've forgotten me. And God tells them, he says, can a mother forget her child? I've graven you on the palms of my hands. And I just was brokenhearted with thinking how I could imagine people out there in the jungles that are crying out, God, you've forgotten me. And yet he's sending messengers. He's sending people to seek for them. That's this beautiful thing in our hearts that we cannot get out. We've been doing this for so many years now. And we see people that are lost out in those jungles, and they're crying, Lord, have you forgotten me? Are you going to send someone to tell me the truth? Oh, we could tell so many stories that we've read, too, about people that are expecting for someone to come with a book.
Yes.
And the truth is coming to them.
It did take 6 years of going after that first tribe, investing all of the time and the effort and pain and suffering, really, into reaching those, and starting to wonder if we were going to spend the rest of our lives going after this single tribe and never find them. I've always likened it to, and it's not like looking for a needle in a haystack, it's like trying to find a moving needle in a haystack to find these people, these nomads out there.
That's good.
And after we finally saw where there was a contact that was made, it's as if the Lord has caused this to begin to snowball, because now, just in a few short years after that, there's been 2 more tribes added in Peru, and then another tribe in India, and we can see where God is adding possible tribes in Africa and some other places that he's going to allow us to go after. And again, following this pattern of us going in and risking our lives and meeting the native Christians of that area and telling them, look, would you at least go with us? Or would you yourself go when we can't go, and go further than we can go? And God is blessing that. He's using it.
It's been amazing to me to be in Africa sometimes, or in Asia somewhere, and to show a national church planner some video footage of us. And they're like, wow, we didn't know that anybody was still doing that. And so it's not just American pastors that we will talk to sometimes that say, wow, I didn't know there was uncontacted still. I didn't know that the same kind of thing where the 5 died in Ecuador, I didn't know that still existed out there. But it does. And maybe you've never heard of this. Maybe you're thinking, wow, I'm kind of dubious about this. But it doesn't take much study if you go online and you start seeing the information. In fact, there's activist groups out there trying to protect these people.
Oh, yes.
So it's becoming more and more obvious now. Back when we first started this, we knew we were supposed to do it, but we didn't even know where they were or any information.
Right.
And we had to kind of go out and look for it ourselves.
Triple-E is what we call these trips, these expeditions. It's evangelistic exploit expeditions. If you look up in a dictionary those words, evangelistic, exploit, and expeditions, that really perfectly describes what these trips are, what we're doing. We're taking these difficult excursions into places to try to take the gospel to people who have never heard it before. And that was a new thing to me years ago when the Lord first called me into this, the idea that there are still people who have never heard, never been contacted. I believed, like many people believe now, that the job got done back in the 50s and the 60s, that there were no more uncontacted tribes left. And there's actually more than what you and I can reach in our lifetime if others do not raise up, if others are not inspired to go out and do this. We're not going to get it done in our lifetime. In Daniel chapter 11, they that do know their God shall be strong and do exploits. Right.
What we have here at Final Frontiers is a fund that we call the Expeditions Fund. And so they're looking for, whether it be American missionaries or national missionaries, anyone who is willing to go after uncontacted. And so that they're trying to raise awareness about this right now. We're trying to talk about that. Jason and I have been involved for a long time now. And so the Expeditions Fund has helped us out on a couple different of our expeditions.
Yes.
It's helped us some in India. It's helped us in Peru. And that's been a huge blessing.
Amen.
When all this started in the very beginning, it was just our parents.
Yes.
Honestly, we would go out and they would buy a backpack for us. They'd buy new shoes for us. And that stuff just gets destroyed in one trip.
Yes, it does.
Oftentimes, whether you have a tent, you have a hammock, whatever it is. And so it's been a blessing for churches to start getting on board. This is a subject right here that we could go on for hours and talk about, and we're trying to do a quick session that would just kind of whet your taste buds to hear more. So if you're interested about this, you want to hear more, you can visit finalfrontiers.world. You can click on that Expeditions video. You can see that. But please pray for us. Please pray for some of the people. We're not mentioning tribes here specifically by name, but we are asking you to pray.
In protected jungles around the world, there are still over 140 isolated tribes that have remained completely uncontacted. Who will reach them first? Loggers and oilmen with their guns, or peaceful ambassadors of Jesus Christ bearing the good news of salvation? These last remaining dark territories on Earth are extremely difficult to penetrate. If you are interested in partnering with us to help fund these expeditions, visit finalfrontiers.world.
Hi, my name is John Nelms. Please excuse my voice. I've been struggling with it lately. I'm joined today by Roy Harris, a member of our church, a good friend. And I'd like to talk to you today about our visionary trips. Most Christian churches are used to taking missionary trips or mission trips. But years ago, we started something we call visionary trips. The reason for that is because our Lord told us to lift up our eyes and look on the harvest. And another place it says, mine eye affected my heart. And so we want to make our trips more than just something you go and do, but something that affects your heart and your mind for the rest of your life. We find that each year about half the people who go on our trips have been before, and the other half are coming for the first time. Roy, how many times have you been to Honduras on one of our trips?
Probably 6 or 7 times, I would think.
You generally come alone or with your family?
Usually with at least one family member.
I know your daughter's been before several times. We always like her when she comes. Why do you keep coming back so often?
I think it's like you said, the vision, being able to keep that fresh in my mind throughout the year, being able to come back and share some of the experiences we've had with other people, with church members, with friends and family, just being able to share those pictures, share what we saw, how the ministry is working, the lives that are affected. I guess that's the main reason we keep coming back.
This might be a difficult question for you, but what would you say are some of the highlights or key factors of your visits?
As far as highlights go, I think after the first year we went down there, we started to pick up a couple of kids to sponsor. And one of those I remember was there in the town. Our family sponsored a child, and my daughter Ashton also sponsored a child, and they were brothers. So the second year we went down there, we got to meet them for the first time. And that was definitely a highlight. It's being able to see the child that those funds are helping, to see their family, the smile on their mother's face when you hand them a big bag of food that will last them a while. It's something I'll never forget.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
If you can remember back to your first trip, do you recall what impressed you positively or negatively about being in a foreign country?
Probably how happy the kids were, and they didn't really know what they didn't have, if that makes any sense. Kids here in the U.S., they've got, everything at their disposal. They could have, entertainment in their face, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, toys, running water, heat, air conditioning, you name it, they've got it here. But they're, kids... had dirt, in a flat soccer ball, or that had been rolled up with duct tape. But they were happy. Everywhere we went, they were happy. They were having fun. They didn't seem to be affected by what they didn't have. As far as if their basic needs were met. Obviously the food and things like that. But they were happy.
Yeah, and loving too.
Yes, absolutely. A lot of them didn't know a stranger. They'd see you coming, they'd run up, give you a hug. They'd never seen you before in their life.
Yeah.
So.
I always feel sorry for children towards the end of the summer when they begin to realize that most of the groups have come and left. Maybe there's one more coming, and kids will come to me and say, "Is my sponsor coming?" Or "Why isn't my sponsor coming? When is my sponsor coming?" And then they'll look at some other child and says, "Her sponsor comes every year, but mine never comes." And they don't understand the cost involved in coordinating vacation times and all like that. But it just means the world to them when they have that opportunity. I've noticed that sometimes people who come down come because they just want to see what we're doing. And others who come because they want to do something themselves.
I think a lot of folks do like to go and be able to provide something. Our groups, or the group from our church, a lot of times will, take and collect things throughout the year that we'll be able to distribute, and that's whether it's, a bag with toiletries and toys for a few kids, small toys, or food bags and things like that. That's something that we can do. But I've definitely enjoyed the visionary trips and keeping that fresh in my mind through the year.
That's good. What's your honest assessment about our lodging?
Oh, my goodness. As far as our lodging when we were there, we had heat, air, we didn't need the heat. We had electricity, we had running water, hot water, which was key, fresh water. It was very clean. It was very spacious, comfortable. I don't think we could have asked for anything more, being that far from a big city in a third world country.
Well, we had one family come from Florida once, and they complained because it was too nice. And the brother said that he was expecting to sleep on a church bench, use an outhouse. Well, a few months later, he got invited to go back with another group, and that's what they did. And he made the statement then, "I'm never going back to Honduras unless I go with John," because I want people to be comfortable when they're there. I don't want them to get sick and have to spend their week in bed sick all the time. I want them to have clean water, as you say, good food, energy. And what about the food?
The food and the folks who prepared the food for us was top notch. There was a couple of meals that we had that were, I guess, more local fare, but hamburgers, hot dogs, spaghetti, a lot of the stuff. The food was wonderful. It was very good.
We try to do a mixture so that people whose stomachs may be sensitive every day, they can have something familiar as well as something different. But of course, we buy it at a box store. I think they call them from here in the U.S., so it's all imported in. We don't do that for ourselves, but we do it for our guests because we don't want anybody being sick. Real quickly, what about the trips would you say would cause you to recommend others to come?
I think just that vision and seeing how, not just how your ministry is affecting missions worldwide. It's the whole paradigm shift of training those local men to go out and for pennies on the dollar of what it would take an American family or American missionary to go to language school, go around, raise support, and then go to this country. But being able to actually see how effective that is. And not only that, but the child sponsorships also, and seeing how the dollars are used.
I think while y'all been down there, we've started several churches. And usually every summer we'll start one or two churches because I want the American pastors and church members to have an active part in actually planting a church while they're there. I think that's an exciting thing for them. We've already got several books that are filled up for this summer, but we do still have a few weeks that are available. So we want to invite those who are listening to come down to Honduras and see the work for yourselves. Bring a church group or just come with you and your family. You can go to our website and see the weeks that are still open and learn what you need to know, or just get in touch with us and we'll be able to answer your questions. The important thing is that Final Frontiers is operating now, I think, in 87 countries. And we can't take you to all those countries. Some of them we just don't dare to take you at all. So we wanted to have one place on the planet that's representative of what we do everywhere we serve. We wanted it to be a country that was close, clean, friendly, and safe. And we picked Honduras. My wife is from there. My daughter-in-law is from there. And I lived there for a number of years. So Honduras is like home to us. So it's an opportunity for us to show you the mission field. If you, your family, your church is interested in coming, please get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. But do so quickly. Those weeks are filling up. Thanks so much, Roy. Appreciate your time with us today.
Absolutely.
Your inquiries and comments are important to us. If you have questions or perhaps subject matter you would like to have addressed on this show, please visit us at finalfrontiers.world.
At age 11, I felt a call to missions. From that point on, I listened and learned from every missionary I met. I became convinced, merely by their examples, that I had to learn another language to be a missionary. So as I grew older, I naturally wondered why there were missionaries serving in England, Australia, Belize, and other English-speaking countries. As I began to study the Bible, I couldn't find any place where Paul preached to Gentiles in any language other than Greek, a language as common to Paul as English is to me. As I studied his ministry methods, I began to see a pattern emerge. His emphasis was on penetrating cities that were the cultural seats of a surrounding region. Each community was distinguished by its own primary or patron god or goddess. These may have also been known in other regions, but were not as fervently worshipped outside their patron city. Corinth primarily worshipped Apollo. Ephesus worshipped Diana. Athens, of course, worshipped Athena. And when Paul and Barnabas first began to evangelize in Lystra, Timothy's hometown, they were believed to actually be the gods Jupiter and Mercury. Besides each region having their own regional god, they also had their own regional language, just as Paul had his native language, Hebrew. Through military occupation, languages often died, but even when a local language survived, the people were typically forced to speak the language of the empire. Statistically today, a language dies every 2 weeks. And 96% of the world speaks one of 4 languages. So then it's not the languages you speak that makes you a missionary. It's the message you proclaim. Missionaries don't really have to be bilingual if English is well known locally or if they have an interpreter. And for the record, there are 225 million English speakers in America, but there are 220 million in India and Pakistan. I'm John Nelms. To learn more about missions, order a copy of my book, The Great Omission, on our website at finalfrontiers.world.
Is your church excited about missions? Do your people want to learn more about what's going on around the world in these last days? Does your youth department want to hear fresh stories about inspiring American and national missionary work? Or find out how your church can get involved in smuggling Bibles or reaching unreached people groups? For a Final Frontiers representative to come and speak in your church services or missions conference, please contact us at finalfrontiers.world.
Hello, I'm Joshua Martin, and today I have Jimmy Queen with me. He's a representative for Final Frontiers. He travels around to churches and he presents the ministry. You've been with us for 2 years now?
Correct. Almost 2 years.
That's exciting. So you go around and you speak about the ministry in churches?
Absolutely. I've had the privilege to present, not only Final Frontiers, but Touch a Life as well.
Good.
And I don't know, probably well over 100 different churches now.
So you'll go in and you'll have a table in the back where you have like the cards with the preacher's pictures on them or a child's picture, and then people will come up and they have the opportunity after a church service to take on a preacher, take on a child.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
That's exciting to be able to go in and see the response when you talk about it, and then afterwards see people come up and say, how easy is it? How can I do this? I want to help somebody.
It's very exciting, especially having been to countries and saw the need for myself, and then be able to share with these people not only what I'm representing, but things that I've experienced and things that I've seen, and then for them to get on board with something like that is not just cool, but it's satisfying.
You've yourself been around the world. You've been to some different countries.
My father was in the military, And as a result, we traveled from country to country sometimes. They've lived in places like Bahrain, Saudi Arabia,
Oh, wow.
Sicily, in the Mediterranean. And then I've had the opportunity just personally to go on mission trips down to Chile. I've been to Chile twice. I've been to Peru. I've been to Canada, places like that. After graduating high school, I joined the Marine Corps.
Okay.
And was a military policeman in the Marine Corps. And then due to the high finish I had in military police school, I was selected for protective services and worked at the Pentagon my whole tour.
Wow.
While I was there, I was charged with safeguarding the Secretary of the Navy, then eventually the Secretary of Defense. And I went through 2 Secretary of Defenses, William Cohen and William Perry.
Wow, that's quite the experience then that you had.
Yes, sir.
How has that helped you in the ministry, you think?
Well, it's given me the ability to talk to other missionaries that are going to the field and let them know some of the ways they can stay safe, some things they can look for, just some of the training I've had that gives me that opportunity to teach, I guess, a little bit with these guys. But it's also opened up doors, especially among other pastors, other veterans, that, there's kind of a secret code, I guess, between veterans that we take care of each other. And that's opened up some doors with some pastors that are veterans to allow us to get in there a little bit easier than most people may be able to, and to present Final Frontiers. And it's a unique ministry that veterans, especially veterans like myself that have traveled the world, are really, interested in.
Mm-hmm. And they can trust you more. I mean, when they're a military man, they know how you think. They know how you're wired.
Right. And it's one of the things that the military did for me was instill a sense of integrity. And every veteran's going to say that. And so, if the pastor's a veteran and a veteran comes in there and they say, okay, I'm going to believe this guy because,
Sure.
I'm one of him.
You've been to Honduras, right?
I have.
So you went on one of the visionary trips and you've seen the ministry there?
I did. Summer before last, I went on a visionary trip. My daughter and I went down. I'd already surrendered to missions then, and we were already representing Final Frontiers, but I came back with a better understanding of exactly what Final Frontiers did and what Touch of Life did.
Right.
We went into one of the little villages, and she kind of befriended and got befriended by one of the little girls in the village. I think her name was Alejandra. And Alejandra was really interested in one of the bracelets that my daughter had on, and they were the same age. They were both, I think, 13 or 14 at the time. And so my daughter took the bracelet off and gave it to her. And my daughter said, Dad, when I put it on her, it wrapped around her wrist twice, where it wraps around my wrist once. She said, seeing where she lived at and seeing what they, have to endure, she said it made me so much more grateful for what I have in the United States.
Yeah, we don't see that, and especially our children. It's really good to be able to take our children in there and let them see that firsthand.
Right. And if she asked me all the time, Dad, when are we going back? When are we going back? I want to go back to Honduras. So she's excited about going back this coming summer on another visionary trip with our church.
And it's a life changer for them.
It is.
What really drew you towards Final Frontiers in the beginning, before all that?
Well, my pastor, Gene Carpenter, is currently on the board with Final Frontiers. And so when I went to him and told him what I felt like God was calling us to do, we wanted to be involved in the smuggling part of things. And he said, well, let me put you in touch with Brother John Nelms. And so I came down and I met with Brother John and Brother Daniel, and we just kind of hit it off and had peace from the Lord that this was a relationship that could work. And so it's been doing well now for a couple of years.
Like we've said before, if you're listening out there and you want a representative of Final Frontiers to come to your church, you can contact us here, finalfrontiers.world. You can get in touch with us. Jimmy, if they want to contact you specifically, how would they do that?
You can contact me best by email, and that would be lowercase Jimmy, Jimmy, then capital Q, at finalfrontiers.org.
Thank you. It's been good to have you here today.
Great to be here. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Final Frontiers radio show, funded by sponsors like you. Thank you so much for joining us. Through the funding of national and native preachers, we endeavor to effectively advance the gospel where it has never been preached before. If you want more information, visit www.finalfrontiers.world. That's finalfrontiers.world.